صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
تلخ یا سورج شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے. تلخ یا سورج
شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے.
رات اندھیری سنسان بن، ڈھونڈوں کہاں تجھے اے ہل بدن. رو رو پکاری ماں دل جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے. تلخ یا سورج شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے.
وقت مدد ہے مشکل کشا، مشکل کرو حل بہر کوتا.
تمہیں بتاؤ مولا علی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے.
دلک یا سورج شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے.
جنگل میں کس جا تو کو گیا، کالی ہے جھولا اے محل کا. کس کو جلائے اماں تیری، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے. دلخ یا سورج شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے.
یہ تو بتا دے اے حرملا، چیدہ ہے کیوں تنہیں ننھا گلا.
تو بھی ہے کیوں نے ننھی کلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے. دلخ یا سورج شمع جلی، ننھا میرا اصغر کہاں گیا ہے. صلوات علی محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسوله المختار، النبي المكي المدني القرشي الحاشمي، العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد والمصطفى الأمجد، مولانا حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد والفرقانه الحميد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On these days of Ayyam Fatimiyya, the days when we commemorate the death of our holy, illustrious lady, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, I would like to first pay my sincere condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, on the death of his holy grandmother, Bibi Fatima. And inshallah, in this two-part series, we are going to look at the life of Bibi Fatima, just as she is about to enter into this world. A glimpse of the passage of the short time that she had in this world, and then the lead up to her death. Bibi Fatima died at the tender age of only 18 years. Yes, only 18 years. Now, I'm going to cast your minds back to when the Holy Prophet, that's the father of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and Bibi Khadija, the Holy Mother of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, got together and they were married. At that time, there was a lot of detestment on this marriage, especially from the friends of Bibi Khadija. Bibi Khadija, as we know, was Malikatul Arab. She was the Princess of Arabia. And as a result, her friend circle was a very big and esteemed and very affluent friend circle. But after she married Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she lost all of these friends. And as a result, during the time when she was pregnant with Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, she had no friends. When the Prophet used to go and spread the message of Islam, and Bibi Khadija used to be at home while she was pregnant, she would have no one to talk to. She would have none of her friends to console her, to give her that moral support that a woman would need. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never forgets the person who gives everything she has for the sake of Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a result, when Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was in the stomach of Bibi Khadija, there was a miracle whereby Bibi Khadija was able to talk to her dear child while she was in the stomach. Bibi Fatima, yes, would speak to her and console her and say, "Mother, don't worry, I am here for you. Yeah, you don't need anyone, for Allah has looked after you with me talking to you in this manner." Now, when it came to the time when Bibi Khadija was in labor, that's the time when Bibi Khadija was about to give birth to Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. At that time, everyone needs assistance. Everyone needs help in the way of a midwife. A special person who is able to carry out the delivery of the child. Now, at this stage, again, when she sent a message out to the midwives of the Quraysh, no one would come to her aid. No one would help Bibi Khadija. At the time, real severe stage of her labor, when she is really desperate for help, 4 women suddenly come into the room that she is in. The first of those 4 women was Sahra. Sarah was the wife of Nabi Ibrahim, and she came close to her and she introduced herself and said, "I am Sarah, the wife of Ibrahim." And then she pointed to another woman and she said, "This is Asiya." Asiya was the wife of Fir'aun. She goes, she talks to Bibi Khadija and says, "She is going to be your companion in Jannah." As we know, Bibi Khadija was one of the 4 women of paradise, together with Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and together with Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. And then she points to the 3rd woman, who is Maryam. Maryam was none other than the mother of Nabi Isa. And the 4th woman was Kulthum. Kulthum, if you remember, was the sister of Musa. Do you remember that sister that ran when Musa alayhi salam was put into the basket by his mother, and then his sister was told to follow the basket, and she followed it and she saw it go into the court of Fir'aun? This was Kulthum. So these 4 women came to her assistance by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when they assisted her through the delivery of the holy lady Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, when Bibi Fatima was when she was received by these 4 women, then suddenly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded another 10 women from Jannah to come down, and they came down with trays. They had water from the pool of Kawthar, from the fountain of Kawthar, and at that time they washed the holy body of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Look at the purity of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Not only was she pure, We didn't talk about how she was created. The Prophet was told to separate from Bibi Khadija for 40 days, and he fasted, and he was fed the food from Jannah. And when Bibi Fatima was conceived by when she was conceived in the stomach of Bibi Khadija, she was produced from the food of heaven. She was absolute purity. And what other befitting way would there be to clean this pure baby but with the water of the fountain of Kawthar? Allah sent this down with these 10 women from heaven. She is washed with this water. After she is washed, then from one of the trays they take 2 white cloths. The riwayat describes that these white cloths were whiter than milk, and they had a scent with musk and amber, which is an incredible perfume that was coming out from the cloth. One was used to wrap Bibi Fatima as a child, and the other was to cover her head, almost like a scarf. Now, if we look at the whole time when the Prophet came down in this era of Jahiliyyah to change the whole mentality of the really ignorant Arabs at the time, what were they doing? They were burying, one of the things we talked about, they were burying their young girls alive. Now, the Prophet and Bibi Khadija had other children that were born to them, but they all died in infancy. None of them survived, apart from Bibi Fatima a.s. So look at Allah's plan. Allah is showing the Arabs that Prophet Muhammad, the last messenger of Allah, he is going to have only this one child, and that child is not a boy. That child is a girl. The same girls, the same type of gender as the girls that you are burying alive. What were you doing? This is showing you the status of a woman. Now, Bibi Fatima a.s. at this real tender young age was born when there was a lot of calamity. So she was seeing as a really young child, in her, like when she was 2-3 years old, she was seeing the Prophet really going through turmoil. The Prophet would be hurt by the people when he would go out and he would try and spread the message of Islam. The people who were really bent on believing on these idols and they would trouble the Prophet. As a result, the Prophet would come back and he would be ridiculed, he would be hurt, and Bibi Fatima would witness all of this. Not only this, but the people that accepted Islam, they were even persecuted. And we know that as a result, the Prophet and his companions, the small companions and followers of Islam, were cordoned off to the valley of Abu Talib, Shi'bul Abu Talib. And for 3 years, they were isolated from the whole of society. And Bibi Fatima was only a young child at this stage. And this is, if you can remember, this is when they would not have food to eat. They would try and almost smuggle food into the valley for the people to eat. Bibi Khadija used all of her wealth to feed the people that had loyally accepted Islam. But there was a tragedy that occurred in these 3 years, whereby the Prophet lost his holy wife, Bibi Khadija, and his uncle, his support, Abu Talib alayhis salam. And Bibi Fatima was a witness to all of this. As we know, they left the valley of Abu Talib, and Allah through Jibreel had instructed for the great migration. So at this time, the Prophet, he arranged for Muslims to start leaving Mecca, but there was a few that were left behind. And just as we know, just before he left on the night of Hijrah, he had asked his cousin, Imam Ali alayhis salam, to sleep in his bed so that the people would think that the Prophet was sleeping in the bed, but it was Imam Ali. And in that night, the Prophet left with a whole group of people heading towards Yathrib or Medina. This Imam Ali was left, as we know, in Mecca. They didn't kill him. They realized it was Imam Ali sleeping in his bed, and they were fooled by the plan. And Imam Ali was left for two reasons. One was to give back. See, remember, Prophet Muhammad was a Sadiq and Al-Amin, the trustworthy and the truthful, and he would be left with the valuables of the people. So these same people that were troubling him, they would still trust Prophet Muhammad. They didn't take away their valuables that were in the safeguarding of the Prophet. So the Prophet had to give back these things that he was given to God, and he wanted to make sure that every single one of them was given back perfectly, and there was no one other than Imam Ali that could do that for him. So he left Imam Ali in Mecca to give all of these things back. But Imam Ali was also there to escort the two Fatimas to join the Prophet, who had almost reached Medina, but he was on the outskirts, and he stopped. The Prophet stopped just before he entered Medina. He stopped at Masjid Quba. Here, the Prophet waited for his cousin Imam Ali, who was bringing Fatima bint Asad, and he was bringing back Bibi Fatima. That's the daughter of the Prophet, and he guarded them all the way. During this journey, they were attacked by a caravan, and at that stage, Imam Ali, the caravan said, "We are going to take your women," and Imam Ali bravely, valiantly, at this time said, "You are not going to touch them," and he fought by himself. He fought the entire caravan. Imam Ali eventually reached Masjid Quba, and the Prophet then, together with Bibi Fatima and Bibi Fatima bint Asad, entered into Yathrib or Medina. Now, whilst they were in Medina, there was this was the time when the Prophet was able to spread Islam more comfortably. So at this stage, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was getting so many proposals from so many very, very well-known, very rich, highly statused in society people, and every single one of them was rejected, because Bibi Fatima held a special state of purity, and there was only one human being that was on earth that could be the husband of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and this was none other than Imam Ali. And eventually, Imam Ali, realizing that she was saying no to all of these wealthy people, esteemed people in society, not in spirituality, in society. Some of them were companions of the Prophet at the time, and they were all rejected. Imam Ali, he went to the Prophet and he asked for the hand of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam in marriage, and he was granted this. They say that Bibi Fatima, had it not been for the existence of Imam Ali, then Bibi Fatima, there would not be a spouse befitting for Bibi Fatima because of her purity, and her state of spirituality. There had to be someone of equal or of a level which would be similar to Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and that was none other than Imam Ali's. Now, during this matrimony, during the marriage of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, they had 4 incredible children. The first of their children was born on the third after Hijrah, 3 years after Hijrah had occurred, and this was Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And after Imam Hassan, we know Imam Hussain, 1 year after this, on the fourth year after Hijrah, was born. And then 1 year after this, Bibi Zainab alayhi salam was born, and this was in the 5th year after Hijrah. and 1 year after this, in the 6th year after Hijrah, Bibi Kulthum. So there were 4 children that Bibi Fatima had with Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, I want to look at the time. I want to step back a little. At the time when Bibi Fatima saw her mother leave this world, she saw her father being so badly hurt that she would see him covered in wounds. He would be bleeding. They would hurt the Prophet of Allah, a man who was a mercy on earth to mankind. He was hurt. He was being thrown with sharp objects, with stones, and he would have blood all over him. And his beloved daughter, Bibi Fatima, would run. She would run to him and she would basically nurse him. And this is where she got the title, Umme Abiha. She was like a mother to her father. And there was a time when Abu Jahl was the uncle of the Prophet, the evil uncle of the Prophet. He saw an opportunity where he saw the Prophet was just near the precincts of the Kaaba. The Prophet was praying, Salah. As he was praying, Abu Jahl called some of the other people around, some of the other mischief makers like he was around, and said, go and bring me the feces and the intestines of a camel. And his friends brought this to him. They said, now with all the blood and all the vile smell of this, I want you to go and throw this onto the shoulders of the Prophet whilst he's in prostration. And this is what they would do. And they would do this, and they would laugh after doing this. Not only would they do this, but they would laugh loudly, and people would see this. And then word spread to Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and she came running to her father. And whilst he was still praying, she would clean away like a mother would clean a child's dirt off her clothes. She would clean the Prophet. This was there was such an incredible amount of hurt that Bibi Fatima would experience when she would see what was being done to her beloved father. Her father, we have to understand that when Bibi Fatima was born, Fatama is weaning. The word Fatama in Arabic comes from the root word Fatima comes from Fatama, which is weaning. And Imam Jafar as-Sadiq said there's one riwayat saying that Fatima is weaning the people away from hellfire. And who is these people? These people are the lovers of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. People like you and I, who remember Bibi Fatima at several times in the year. Yeah, both Bibi Fatima and her progeny. And they say that this weaning away from hellfire is only there for the followers, for the Shia of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. So another riwayat talks about this Fatima, or weaning away from evil. Bibi Fatima was instilled a knowledge which was a divine knowledge. Divine knowledge means a knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She was not taught this. It was as if it was kind of instilled in her veins. Remember the fruit from heaven that made up her whole body when she was born? It's like the fruit had that information. It was already inside her blood, this special information. And the Prophet realized this. And he made it a point that every time Bibi Fatima would come into his presence, if he's sitting amongst his companions, he would stand up in absolute offering to Bibi Fatima, in absolute servitude almost to Bibi Fatima. He would be with his companions. Suddenly Bibi Fatima enters and he would stand up. And she would be a young child at this time. This is not when she's a woman, when she was a young child. And the Arabs would see this. They would look at this and say, why are you giving so much importance to a woman? Remember, these Arabs, the same Arabs, had in their lineage bearing of girls. And they were now seeing the status that the Prophet was trying to uphold and promote and magnify, that a woman holds a high status. But they also knew that this was no ordinary woman. This was an incredible woman that the Prophet was trying to give extreme status to. So I want you to remember this, because in part 2, when we look at what led to the death of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, it is very important that these signs of Bibi Fatima's status were really reinforced earlier on, from the time when she was a child, to all of the Muslims, especially the close companions of the Holy Prophet. Now, I want to talk about the part when she got married to Imam Ali. When she got married to Imam Ali, she had put on her wedding dress. And we know women love to obviously design and choose the best of wedding dresses. And Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was really happy with her wedding dress. And when she wore this, there was a poor girl that saw her, and she says, "Oh wow, I wish I could have this wedding dress. You've got such a nice wedding dress." At once, Bibi Fatima went upstairs and she said, "Stay there, give me 10 minutes." She went and changed, and this was on her wedding day, and she took off that wedding dress and put on an ordinary dress. And she came back and she gave this dress to this poor child and says, "Enjoy it. You loved it so much, enjoy it." Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was not interested in the material world. She was only, there's 2 really incredible names that Bibi Fatima had, titles that she enjoyed, which were Marsiya, Radiya. And Radiya is when someone is Radi, someone is happy. And Allah, she was always happy with what Allah gave her. And Mardiya is when, this is a very, very big status, which is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with you. It's one thing being happy about what Allah is making in your life happen. But there's another thing where Allah is happy with you, with the way you are acting, with what He is doing for you. And Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, when we talk about the poverty when she married Imam Ali, they were so poor that they would sleep on the skin of a goat. So they didn't have blankets and pillows, and they would put this goat skin, not even sheepskin, goat skin on the floor, and they would sleep on that. And then they would use the same goat skin to sit and eat on. And they would use the same goat skin to pray on as a prayer mat. And the rest of the floor, just to soften the rest of the floor, they would use the sands of Arabia. They would bring the soft sand of Arabia and they would soften the rest of the floor. They wouldn't have carpets. They wouldn't have these luxurious rugs that we may have seen in that part of the world. This is how Bibi Fatima lived with Imam Ali alayhi salam. There was, during the time when, this was on a Thursday night. A Thursday night was the classic night when Bibi Fatima would always be in state of prayer. She would always be praying. And Imam Hussain was a very young child at the time, and he saw, the riwayat described him seeing his mother from the night of Thursday, which is Shab-e-Jum'ah. The night of Thursday, he sees his mother standing in prayers, not even sitting, standing at the mihrab. The mihrab in the house, they'd had an area. You have a mihrab, which is where, if you have namaz al-jamaat, you have the mihrab where the imam stands, when he's facing Qibla. They would have a mihrab, an area that they would have designated for salah. And he would see his mother standing at the mihrab for the entire night up until the morning of Jum'ah. from Thursday night all the way, the whole night in prayers. And when she's hearing, he's standing there and he's hearing what she's saying. And all she's doing is praying for all the people in her community, her friends, her neighbors. And at the end, Imam Hassan asks his mother, he says, "My mother, why is it that you pray for everyone else and you don't pray for us?" And the famous words, Ad-jar thumma ad-dar. Praying for neighbors first, then praying for our own family. Now, I want to talk about a few more things before we talk about the actual death of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. But there's just one thing I want you, just as we finish this first part, one thing I want you to remember about Bibi Fatima alayhi salam is this one incredible status and title that she also enjoyed, which was Az-Zahra. Az-Zahra is, they say, is the fragrance of a flower. But another meaning of Zahra was that she was like a sparkling diamond on earth. That when the angels used to look down on earth, they used to see this sparkle from where Bibi Fatima was. And this is something that I want you all to understand, that when you are reciting salah when we are reciting salah in our homes, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with his angels, and he tells his angels, look there, and he would see houses where salah is being recited. He said, look, this is my servant, and he is proud where salah is being recited, and it's as if he's looking with the angels at these sparkles on earth. So inshallah, from this one attribute, one title Bibi Fatima enjoyed, we should take lesson that inshallah we should increase our salah in our houses, so that we too can have a glimpse of the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he tells his angels, look at the house where my servant is serving me. Inshallah, we continue the life of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
पहलू भी शिकस्ता
है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है।
क्या हाल ये उम्मत ने ज़हरा का बनाया है,
पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है।
खातून कोई गम से यूं छोड़ नहीं देखी, ऐसी कोई दुनिया में मस्तूर नहीं देखी। 18 बरस में ही लगती जो ज़ईफ़ा है,
पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है।
दरबार में जालिम ने की ऐसी पजीराई, इस तरह से तो बीबी फिर लौट के घर आई। बालों की सफेदी ने सब हाल सुनाया है,
पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है।
तो रोती रही घर में, हैदर से भी छुप چپ کے عصمت کی طرح دکھ بھی پردے میں رہے تیرے کچھ درد تیرے بھی بس جانتی فضا ہے
پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے
تو ویسے جنازے ہیں تاریخ میں جو تھے بس گھر کے ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے ایک بالی سکینہ ہے
پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے
مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بھی نہ ملا اب تک اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا تربت پہ بھی پہرا ہے
پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے
مہدی سے کوئی پوچھے کیا اس پہ گزرتی ہے آواز بقیہ سے جب رونے کی آتی ہے آنکھوں سے لہو رو کر وہ بھی یہی کہتا ہے
پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے
کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے
پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے
محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد